It is a statement of fact that at the moment, the Conservative Party is literally in the clutches of a cult of personality and also fanatics. The cult of personality that has cropped up around Boris Johnson, with those Conservatives not really caring about what Boris Johnson actually does, but just of the fact that he is there and can, well, maybe win them more power and more landslide victory elections. So as a result, it's worth keeping him there. We don't really care about these parties, just as so long as he can bring us that electoral magic, that's all fine. And of course, on the other side, you have the fanatics. Now, of course, the UKIP Conservative, shall we say, membership of these people fluctuated. But after 2016, there was a very, very large influx of not only former UKIP members, but Brexit Party members having not only dual membership of the party, but now switching from the UKIP to Conservative Party. And as a result, these people have slowly elected more and more, shall we say, MPs that were even far right of what even they were expecting, which is why I always say at the moment there are free market fundamentalists now sitting in Parliament. And slowly over time, that is what's happened to the Conservative Party, and they are now enthralled to this. And much of the, shall we say, moderates in the party are very, very shocked and almost having an awakening moment of what's happened to their party. You only have to go back to the Corbyn years to see Conservative MPs or people who are members of the Conservative Party or even like the Conservative press laughing at the Labour Party being enthralled to momentum and saying this type of thing could never, ever happen to the Conservative Party. And yet here you are with Boris Johnson, acting not only almost like Trump, again, with his repeating of the fake news about Keir Starmer just this week, but also the worrying consequences that have happened, obviously, to Keir Starmer in the last 24 hours. Very, very concerning indeed. Not only that, the actions that he's taken, obviously, number 10, bringing not only himself, the office of the Prime Minister into dispute, but the entire Conservative Party as well, because it now looks like to the rest of the country, the Conservative Party are more than happy that those parties went ahead. And by the way, at the moment, publicly, we know that there are at least 15 letters of no confidence currently sitting with the 1922 committee. And if they are to have any hope whatsoever of trying to oust Boris Johnson and at least try and cut the feet off these fanatics and these cult of personalities that are currently taking over the party, their window of opportunity to try and get rid of him is closing very, very quickly. So with that said, I'm just going to go diving into this article to find out more about what's going on in the Conservative Party and just how insane this whole process really is at the moment. So before we do go jumping into that, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. So on with the article then. This comes from The Guardian with the title of Pinter never created a dark comedy as the Brexit Party. So I had a unique touch. Absolutely unique. Then they came up to me. They came up to me and said they were grateful. Champagne we had that night, the lot. No, this was not what Prime Minister Boris Johnson, speaking of the now notorious birthday party that was in breach of his very own lockdown rules. Those were in the rest of the country that we were observing. This is Stanley, the character whose birthday is in Harold Pinter's very macabre comedy, The Birthday Party. During his subsequent party, Stanley has a very rough time. And in my view, Johnson should have been having a very rough time for a series of episodes that have been very well covered in the media. Even like Stanley, the Prime Minister was affected to supposedly be surprised by his own birthday card party. Indeed, let them eat cake. So let's face it. Well, the Conservative Party is now tying itself in knots over is how to handle the realization that the leader that they did not trust but who gave them a resounding election victory has been found out as an amoral scoundrel by a largely law-abiding electorate. To say nothing of the rest of the world, in the eyes, he's a complete laughingstock. But our so-called leader has besmirched the very reputation of this once widely admired nation. I know I am far from alone in finding the daily spectacle of this very grotesque government's antics sickening. Yes, sickening. Winning that last election was not quite the Johnson triumph it would have held out to be. Frankly, I know this will offend many Labour voters who saw lots in the Corbyn programme that they liked. It is only to be very considerable the extent of an anti-Corbyn election. Indeed, one of the great ironies of the recent polls is that the victorious low-tax Johnson Tories have been racking up public spending, not least on the account of COVID, to levels only dreamed of by Corbyn. But such spending is nowhere near the details of what the fundamental economic problems are facing society. To not put too fine a point on it, the leader who got Brexit done has, in that very act, been hoisted by his own petard. This was very illustrated last week in those two major announcements. First, the so-called levelling up agenda by Michael Gove, and secondly by the Chancellor with his package to try and alleviate energy costs. There was a slight problem with the levelling up programme. It's money. There are no new funds, just a relabeling of previous announcements whose contents are now nowhere near made up for over the decade of austerity. The hit to this economy from, wait for it, getting Brexit done is enormous. The Office for Budget Responsibility estimates that at least 4% of the annual reduction to our nation's income and outcome from Brexit has not, to my knowledge, been seriously questioned. That figure is a macro number. That is the sum of the myriad of hits to our productivity, the monumental rise in wasteful extra bureaucratic documentation, the Brexiteers' failure to try and regain control, the lorry queues along the Dover Road. Recent subsidies indicate the manufacturing output has been very badly hit by the barriers created by the very self-harm of the Brexit barriers, which are especially harmful to the small and medium-sized businesses that the Tories affect to favour. But then, this is no longer the Conservative Party. It is the English National Party. After years of relative economic decline vis-à-vis our European neighbours, we entered what was then the European Economic Community in the 1973 for good economic reasons. Our average growth rate increased, and with Brexit, this blighted country has in effect voted to go back to the path of relative economic decline. For instance, why is Sunak so desperate that he has to go ahead with imposing a national insurance levy on an already struggling households? Why is he so severely inhibited in the degree of relief which he can offer to a nation hit by such a dramatic surge in gas prices? Why is Gove's budget for levelling up so pitifully limited? The answer is that the Brexit that those charlatans sold to a gullible public has toppled tens of billions of pounds off the Treasury's potential tax revenues. Now, a past Conservative leader who would put Johnson and indeed the rest of his cabinet in the shade was Harold Macmillan. He was fond of quoting the poet Hilary Belloc, saying, "Always keep a hold of a nurse for fear of finding something worse." And I should not compare Johnson to a nurse, but the modern Conservative Party is now in the hands of extremists. In the hands and obviously, in the interest of common decency, Johnson has to go. But alas, he has soiled the party, and there is no guarantee in terms of policy that may not be followed by something worse. O tempora, o mores. So, we've said it before, the economic outlook for the UK is not good. Not good at all. And I would love to speak to William Keegan about sort of the UK economy and where he thinks it's going. I might actually try and reach out to him, see if we can't arrange something. Of course, I doubt he'll ever reply, but hey, if you don't ask, you'll never know. So we'll try and find that and see if we can reach out to him, have a conversation. We'll see. But yeah, The economic outlook for the UK is not good. And as he says, those questions, if Brexit is so well and we've got apparently all this extra money, why are we finding such a hard time trying to, again, deal with this cost of living crisis, the energy crisis? You've only got to look onto the continent to see France, Germany, Italy proposing, initiatives to limit the damage to the poorest of these, the poorest in their countries, with windfall taxes, capping energy prices, etc. You name it, they're taking action. Sunak is not. Michael Gove promised a levelling up revolution all throughout Brexit and since then, and he was delivered essentially nothing but relabeled funds. No one wants to talk about this, but we have lost 4% of our GDP. That is a lot of money for a country to lose. And again, 4% may not sound like a lot, but remember, that 4% is potentially trillions of pounds gone. And all of that is down to Brexit. And it has been said multiple times, we joined the European Economic Community to stop Britain's slow economic decline. We are now going back to that. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.